And we are back. Welcome back to the Kids Report this Friday, October 20th, 2017. Senki reporting live from the Chenigung Palace here, joined today with Dr. John Burgess. Am I saying that correct? Am I saying that correct?
Either way, Burgess, usually.
Burgess. Okay, thank you. Dr. Burgess has received several doctorates, including medicine and surgery, acupuncture, oriental medicine, and homeopathy. Wow. He serves as a program director of the American Osteopathic Society of Rheumatologic Diseases. Received a medical surgical license since in 1985. Serving as medical director of Shenandoah Preventive Medicine Incorporated in Martinsburg, West Virginia. He was also commissioned as Air Force officer and tactical C-130 pilot in 1974. Thank you for your service, sir. Also, Dr. Burgess is an expert in neurotherapy, a safe, gentle pain management injection technique without cortisone and radiation. He is also a fellow in anti-aging, functional, and regenerative medicine, an advocate for natural healing. Dr. Burgess always says the best place to start in medicine is in nature. Exercise, good nutrition, detoxification, and a peaceful, productive home is always the foundation of health. Dr. Burgess, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you speak to us just about the basics of human health, the basics of natural healing or nature as a source of natural healing?
Absolutely. And I think if we go back in time where we didn't have the advanced surgeries, we didn't have the numerous thousands of drugs. The only place that people looked to for healing was nature. And the depth of their understanding may supersede our own. Within human beings is a very powerful ability to heal, recover, and regenerate. And but I think we need a peaceful, safe place to do that. And to find a peaceful, safe place where people can recover and regenerate, because I've done that for some 30 years with kids trying to get off drugs, vets trying to get their PTSD and problems under control. And we had over thousands of patients, but the recovery, to be honest about it, the most successful recovery with these people, PTSD and drug addiction, was to put them in an atmosphere of safety, nobody's messing with them, nobody's hurting them, and comfort, the basics, food, shelter, that type of thing. And then to do all of this within a natural environment. So we had a couple of 100 acres of land, horses, dogs, cats, animals, organic food, but basically, I provided the safety and the comfort, but the healing, I think, was entirely from nature, allowing someone to be with themselves, to be who they are, and to feel safe in doing that. It seems there's some powerful force of nature or spirit or God that allows people to heal if they are living in an atmosphere of peace. We saw a high success rate with that. And the food type, just very, very basic on the foods. Probably the best thing I ever learned in food understanding or nutrition was what I'll go ahead and say. I mentioned a friend of mine. He had a muscular dystrophy. He was quadriplegic from the early age, about 4 years old. And the longest anyone ever lived with his condition was 20 years. And he was a vegetarian, and he followed 3 simple rules. And then he lived to be 39. He doubled maximum life expectancy by following the rules of grains, greens, and beans. How simple can it get? Grains, greens, and beans.
So in your program, do you also prescribe, I guess, for a certain types of physiologies or certain types of, body types or dispositions, you would prescribe vegetarian plant-based nutrition?
Everybody's different. I've been
Okay.
vegetarian personally for 40 years, but I think some people may require more protein dense food. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're kind of in a tennis match now. Some saying more meat, some saying less meat. But I think if you want to get back to basics, balance, just balance, and also acceptance. Some people may want to eat a certain type of food and you may like another, but there's no contest between who's eating the right food. And I think that, again, when you get back to the basics of grains, greens, and beans, you can live in a fairly civilized, comfortable, world and have a diet that can be tasty as well as, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
No.
and
Oh,
the
yes, yes. Go ahead.
body types, if someone is larger, more overweight, I would simply say more walking. Walking. You want basics again. I think walking is a method of not only getting your heart, your lungs, and your brain working and everything circulating, but God put reflex points on the bottom of our feet.
Hey, that's true. Yeah.
So if He put them there, it's probably for a reason. So that when
Yes.
we do walk, we are activating those reflexology points on the bottom of our feet. So I think that's a natural way of healing just by taking a stroll.
Yeah. In Asia, it's very common. I mean, even in Korea, for example, South Korea, it's very common for people to have, this, to say, for example, I need to walk 10,000 steps today. And that's like a part of a health regimen. I'm also doing like this. My father-in-law, who's very into Asian medicine, acupuncture, you name it. He does a lot of jaw exercises, bite exercises, because it helps him with his brain function, et cetera. All this fight different things is what he says. Like for example, Alzheimer's or some of that. But I just got this exercise ball. It's called jazzercise, and it's basically to stimulate the muscles in your face because I do a lot of different type of combat martial arts and some of that, and we do a lot of different type of training. I was vegetarian for 6 years. I studied in Buddhism for over 10 years, before I became a Christian pastor, et cetera. But so I've been involved in a lot of these things. But at the same time, like, I don't know how I got into that, but I'm sorry. But, basically stimulating, the muscles in your body, like we have all these different muscles that we train. But like in your face, you have like 57 different muscles, which you don't train, and you're not getting any blood flow in there. And I felt by just doing this small exercise of just chewing on this thing that they have, like it's like a little ball basically, and you chew on it. I feel this incredible blood flow going through my head, my back of my head, up back here, through my sinuses. It's really quite interesting. And I just generally feel really healthy just chewing on this little ball. It sounds crazy. I mean, probably not to you, but to normal people, to the regular people, it sounds kind of nuts. But like doing these things, which are alternative, have a tremendous impact on our body. That's at least what I've experienced.
Yeah. Yes. The terms holistic, alternative, complementary, and now we're into the term integrative. That's
Oh,
probably,
okay.
yeah. So that's kind of the new catch-all term, at least with the government. So 30 years ago, you would talk about holistic medicine, and then 20 years ago, according with the United Nations, it was complementary alternative medicine. And,
Mm.
and recently, the term within the medical circles, at least as far as giving themselves appropriate names, is integrative. And the United States government has been saying only in the last year or so, what we need is integrative medicine, or especially integrative pain management. That's the big reason they're talking about it now, because the methods we've used for the last 30, 40 years to control drug addiction and the heroin crisis do not work.
Yes.
And if we're going to be treating pain, but the only thing we're allowed to use is either pain medication, opiates, which can be fine in some cases. Everything has to be determined individually. But the methods we've used to treat pain, at least financially, where most of the money has gone, has been in steroids, cortisone injections, and those injections are combined with fluoroscopy, X-radiation, which does increase cancer risks. So you have to ask yourself, why have we been using mainly steroids and radiation to treat pain with almost no understanding of, I mean, really, 99% of the time, those people who are treated have no education in nutrition, homeopathy, acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, osteopathic, or the type of things our grandmas would have taught us if they had
Yes, right. That ancient the herbalism. I also practice bushcraft and survival skills as well. And like one of the parts of bushcraft is like learning wild edibles. So I love wild edibles. I love chewing on wild edibles like plantain and like, you know, the queen got my wife is a queen and she got stung by a bee, so I just chewed up some plantain and, you know, some plantain, you know, the wider plantain. I can't remember exactly the Latin name to that. Plantago major, I guess it is. And then I just chewed it up, put it on it, and that bee sting went boom, it was gone. I mean, it's like I used to have like tremendous like indigestion sometimes, and just a little bit apple cider vinegar just bangs that out. It's like incredible. But it's like, you know, this is traditionally called like Asian medicine or natural medicine, but it's like this was like standard. This was standard all over the world, right? I mean, it was folk medicine.
It's kind of funny what we call traditional medicine today within Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, all the insurance companies. What they call traditional medicine is actually recent medicine that has failed miserably, but we're still using it. So we shifted over to the drugs. And you probably know this. Basically, we went from homeopathy and natural medicine up until 1910. And then we had the Flexner Report that was funded by the Rockefellers. Which
the Rockefellers, there you go.
Yeah, and that's what happened. So with the Flexner Report, it said all of the medical schools who were utilizing natural medicine were out of date and they needed to be updated into drugs and surgery. So since that time, we shifted into a lot of drugs and a lot of surgery. And now that new stuff is called traditional medicine, whereas what you said, the real traditional.
Are they calling it basically like the pharmaceutical vaccines, the traditional medicine? Is that what they're saying?
I'm afraid so.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so that's playing with the words even.
That is so crazy.
So there's been a real effort to actually reduce or try to portray our traditional folk medicine as being silly, not functional, just basically the people who are practicing natural medicine from 1910 until now are considered crazy. But I have to tell you, since I've seen a lot of patients over the 30 some years, I've had several patients who are Cherokee. And I always ask them about their Cherokee grandmother. And they all have the same story. Whenever we got sick within the family, and this is in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever they got sick within that family, Cherokee mom would walk into the woods, come back out of the woods in about half an hour to an hour with a basket of herbs. And then she would cook and prepare those herbs like you were mentioning with the plantain. And they would always recover. They would do well. And in most of these cases, those Cherokee grandmothers lived into their 90s. One common theme was they all lived to be in their 90s. So if they're living 20, 30 years longer than those who are receiving traditional medicine, we should examine that. We should ask what's going on. And that is what's going on. If you buy the drugs and surgery, you probably won't do that well. If you add a lot of natural medicine, you'll be okay.
Well, what's so shocking? We had Rusty Hexter in, who's here in Pennsylvania, trying to. He runs an organization for the Freedom from basically vaccines organization out here. His daughter was vaccine injured at 9 months old. Thank God she's doing a lot better now. But anyways, a nice guy who was former law enforcement, former Army, sort of very nice young man. I think he's like in his 30s. But he's out there, and we had him on the show the other day, and we went through the list of this stuff that's in the vaccine. I mean, they have like arsenal in there. They have like, thimerosal, which is more deadly than some type of products that go into nuclear bombs. They have like aluminum at toxic levels, like 6,000 times the toxic limit of drinking water. I mean, it's like absolutely ridiculous what kind of poisons have in these drugs.
A deadly situation, and you would think we could have at least communication, but there's not. There seems to be positioning from those people who are profiting from the vaccines, but not much discussion, even with our representatives. And that's a little bit of a sad note there, because you're also aware that we have this massive increase in autism.
Right.
So, I mean, tenfold increase. So when you see a doubling of cancer, tenfold increase in autism, we should at least be able to ask questions and have discussion. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask a question, you're some kind of conspiracy theorist, or you're some kind of crazy, or something like that. It's just, it's so ridiculous. And you have this explosion. I mean, it was like 50 years ago, like it was so rare to see a child with autism. Now it's like 1 out of like 64, something like that. It's just like, it's staggering how many kids are getting basically, and they're now, I guess they're finding studies that are now showing associations. I remember seeing one just a couple of weeks ago in the New York Times, I believe, and they're saying that there's studies now showing associations between autism and hard vaccines with heavy metals.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the detoxification earlier. If we're trying to get people to recover well, so detoxification, which could be done through various ways of chelation of the heavy metals, like you're talking about, and then things to get it to regenerate. If we're going to help those kids that are all messed up, because the numbers are really, really high. In some first grade classes, half of the class is on Ritalin.
Oh my gosh.
So that means speed. So anyway, it's I think the drugs will always be about money. So but if there's not a discussion on it, we may lose a lot of our kids.
It's interesting because you can't even say people are being treated, or there's many people that are being healed that had cancer, even if it was just with prayer or with even just some type of alternative like therapies. Like there was some, what was that therapy that people going down to Mexico to do? Anyways, all these different alternative therapies with like, lemon juice water and stuff like that. And like things of that nature. I'm sure you probably heard of those kind of things, but you're not allowed to speak of people, I guess, being, recovering from cancer, because they don't want the cancer cure. They want just treatment so they can continue to milk the person as long as they can. And then in the end, they're going to hit them with chemo and radiation, which is $100,000 plus, whatever. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, you're hitting it on the head.
I mean, they don't want the cure. I mean, is it true that at least I've heard it from different people in the medical field that say, hey, the cure for cancer was already discovered decades ago, but the pharmaceuticals don't allow it to be released, or they suppress it.
There are definitely various cures. I don't know about just one cure for cancer, but there's some methods that have been highly successful for decades. And even though they were used in the United States for maybe 40 years, Those methods are now outlawed in the United States.
Wow.
And for what it's worth, I did a fellowship in integrative cancer treatment. And the people I worked with, which I think are the top-notch cancer specialists, oncologists in the United States, were forced to set up their clinics. Now, these are American physicians, top level, and they were forced to leave the country in order to provide the treatments for the patient. So the methods that we know are greatly beneficial are illegal in the United States. So you can't do it here. And
Wow. And the colleges are colluding with them because the colleges too are just funneling people to pharmaceuticals too.
It all goes in that direction. And
it's like flu shots and all this stuff. It's like crazy.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of the stuff we have to do, even in addiction medicine, because I mentioned that earlier, that we deal with addiction, and I never wanted to deal with a crisis like we have now, but I'm right in the middle of it. Our county in the United States is the worst heroin abuse county in the United States.
Really? So, I thought it was our county.
Well, you're close. You're close. And I think, but anyway, the treatments for these type of situations are also illegal in the United States.
Wow, that's incredible. That's mind-boggling. Now, okay, just hold on that 1 second. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back, and let's unpack this a little more with Dr. Burgess. Stay with us.
Got it.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the 44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch. I can't breathe. Out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's do it with the 380.
Does everybody have eyes and ears?
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. This Friday, October 20th, 2017, the Bible says, "Let no man take thy crown." You have to hold fast to your crown and your rod of iron. We're here joined with Dr. Burgess, and we were talking to the break about an incredible, probably world-changing, potentially world-changing breakthrough. And we're dealing with the issue of the opioid epidemic and the problems of heroin, I guess, throughout the different counties and countries of the world. I just raised a point to Dr. Burgess during the break that I don't like the fact that the CIA runs the drug trade, and that the U.S. government been running this drug trade, and we have soldiers protecting poppy fields in Afghanistan, and we produce like 97% of the entire heroin poppy seed production. That is crazy to me, all right? I brought that up at the town hall meetings with our commissioners and all that. They think I'm the crazy pastor. But, hey, it's simply true. All right, Dr. Burgess, but talk to us about the opioid epidemic and some of the breakthroughs that are now coming out.
Yes, the big breakthrough, the one big breakthrough, because we see the way the government has handled the problem. First of all, if you have heroin addiction, you switch to methadone for the rest of your life. And in the last 10 years, the government has said they want everybody on opiates to switch to Suboxone, which is buprenorphine, for the rest of their life, which is just.
And are these are pharmaceutical drugs?
Yes, and it's switching. They're all opiates, and
oh my gosh,
they're switching from one opiate to another.
Whoa, that's mind-boggling. Now, do we know which companies produce these pharmaceutical drugs?
Boy, you're getting into some serious stuff now. Well, let me put it this. I'll give you one to think about, all right? And that is the drug Suboxone was developed and produced by a household cleaning products company.
Clorox.
Actually, you're very close. The company that manufactures Lysol decided to produce, or for whatever reason, wound up producing only one drug for the company, and that was Suboxone, and that's what the federal government has been pushing very strongly. And
that is a little fishy.
Yeah, so if you go down that rabbit hole, you will learn an enormous amount. And another household cleaning product company, which is Procter & Gamble, is building a 1,000-acre factory site a mile from my office here. And and it's something like I've never seen in my life. And again, this is kind of a twin sister or twin factory to the Lysol producers. So with the new factory they're building here, they should be able to produce any chemical or any drug in the world. 1,000 acres. The base of the pyramid is 13. This factory that is like a whole city has been put up within about a year. It's astounding to see. So there's a lot involved. There's a lot involved with this. So this new factory they're putting in is also beside our military base, which is I think the longest runway on the East Coast. So anyway, it's always been a lot of military activity and that type of thing going on. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention the way the government wants to treat addiction is to put everybody on Suboxone, so you take this drug for the rest of your life. But we had mentioned during the break there is an herb, and it's called ibogaine, and it comes ibogaine, and it comes from the bark from a tree in Africa called the iboga tree. So, so as far as chemical drug manufacturing, producing something to get people off opiates, horrible failure, horrible. But this herb with this product has a miraculous ability to get the monkey off your back. In other words, the physical dependence. People on opiates are physically dependent, and if they don't have it, they feel bad. and they have all these symptoms. Well, anyway, this relieves the person of all of those symptoms within 3 to 12 hours. So you're so
Wow.
you're shooting heroin every day, twice a day for 2 years, and within 1 week, you have to leave the country. You're not allowed to be treated in the United States. So you leave the country, get this herb, lay down on a couch, and return in a week, and no more heroin.
Now, how do they administer this? Is this a type of tea, or is it like a natural injection? How do they give it to their patients, this ibogaine?
It's a good question, but it's been simplified to the point of it's put in a capsule.
Wow.
All you have to take is one capsule, lay down, and then you have a lightheaded, what's called a dissociative effect. In other words, it's like a psychedelic kind of experience. If you're taking that a higher dose, and the reason we need, but that's fine. You just lay down and don't move much. But the big question with this type of treatment is not only is it going to be legal in the United States, because I know all the researchers who have been involved with this, and they all have the feeling that the United States is really not serious about quelling the opiate epidemic. So if there is a simple, easy treatment like this, they keep quiet on it. And by the way, I did find out, because I had to lecture on this ibogaine herb, I did do some research recently and found out, even though the government says they did not do the research on it, and then they had to stop the research in the 90s, basically because it was working, I think. They said it was cardiovascular. But I found out our government did research ibogaine in 1956. And guess who did the research? CIA.
Interesting.
At the same time, they were researching LSD, DMT, mescaline. They were researching the ibogaine. So the government has been familiar with this for 60 years, but you don't hear a word from them. But for the people who are trying to get off heroin or have the strong opiate addiction, they simply leave the country. And some go to Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, Panama, the places in Europe. I have my preferred places because you want to be safe when you do this. You're supposed to know what you're doing and do screening, heart screening, things like that. But anyway, it's miraculous. You take this and you're off dope.
That sounds incredible. That's amazing. I mean, people don't know that common, even like Tylenol, the active ingredient, what's it? Is it acetaminophen? Or how does I can't.
Acetaminophen.
Acetaminophen. That comes from willow bark. Isn't it a derivative of willow bark?
Aspirin is. Aspirin is. Yeah. So yeah, the Cherokee grandma.
Yeah.
Go out and get willow bark and cook it.
Yeah, willow bark. Also, black birch has that as well. If you chew on black birch twigs, black birch also has the same ingredient. It reduces the fevers and headaches.
Yeah, I wish I knew 1,000 times more about natural medicine.
That is incredible. Now, you talked about Suboxone and these other drugs that they're putting on. Are these classified, you said they're opiates, are they classified as psychotropic type of drugs?
I don't think so. They have it more, they try to picture it all in an opiate category. So they have this one box where they're putting everything and calling it the same. So when they say oxycodone, when the government says, and other medical authorities say oxycodone and heroin are the same, not true at all. Heroin has a way of stealing the soul, and anybody who's been dealing with that drug understands it. You can take oxycodone every day of the rest of your life and it won't steal your soul. You can take heroin, and over a week to a month, it will control your decision making. Heroin controls the front of the brain, which is decision making. So you start doing things that are just basically evil because you can't help yourself.
Wow.
You're possessed.
Boy, that is incredible. If you look at for example, the mass shootings in America that have happened, even with quote veterans that came back and they're saying that they attacked this or that fort. I think the Fort Hood shooting, some of that. When you look at all these mass shootings that happen, it always comes out later that these people were on psychotropic drugs. Like
Yeah.
even the Las Vegas shooter, he was on psychotropic medication.
Yes. And well, research needs to be done. I've been dealing, like you said earlier, I was a tactical military pilot 40 years ago. So I saw what happened to veterans, and I was one of 500,000 veterans in the street in 1975. And
Wow.
so I've seen what's happened with these guys. And one of the reasons we have 100,000 veterans killing themselves in the last 10 years, 100,000, is because of what you're talking about. And one other factor, they're under a lot of stress, so their hormone cortisol levels go down. And when their cortisol levels go down, adrenaline and noradrenaline kick in to take their place. So now you live in fight or flight. And then if you add the antidepressant to that, now you have suicidal, homicidal fight or flight. So you're exactly right.
Wow.
The way the veterans have been treated has been causing them to kill themselves.
That is incredible because there's so much. Now, is the ibogaine, is that related just to heroin addiction, or can that be used to fight other types of addiction as well?
That's an excellent question, because there seems to be two centers of the brain, one for addiction, that's where cocaine gets a lot of playtime, and another one that is physical opiate dependence. This drug, the ibogaine, again, miraculously appears to remove both. It stops the addiction and it stops the physical dependency. And because it stops the addiction, yes, it can be used for alcohol and cigarettes. And most of the resistance to ibogaine, by the way, came from R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company.
R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. How ironic is it that the FDA's head, Michael Taylor, I don't know if he's still the head, but he was the lawyer for Monsanto. I mean, how absurd is that? Talk about complete conflict of interest, collusion. I mean, you're talking about the highest levels. And this guy is supposed to approve the foods and drugs that people can use.
Yeah, it's crooked and it's dangerous and it's deadly. And
let alone all the prison system, the private run prison system where they're getting slave wages off the prisoners, and like 90% of the prisoners are in there for nonviolent crime. I'm not for, obviously, using drugs and stuff like that. The Bible talks against that. But I mean, but people are like, these are natural herbs. Some people are using like medical marijuana for healing and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know so much about it, but I know the fact that 90% of the prison population is there because of non-violent offenses. And then they're being made to do slave labor, literally at 24 cents. And that's considered a great benefit for them. And you got these conglomerates that are working with those private prison institutions, which also have quotas as well. They got to fill their prisons. It's like some kind of hotels chain slavery system. And they got these young people working at 24 cents an hour, like Walmart, in a Starbucks is in. I mean, all these companies are in it. It's like crazy.
that's a good word for it.
It's just totally crazy. I mean, it's just so much. It's so ridiculous when sometimes the cure is so easy. Like they have all these different things for antacid, and then you have something as simple as apple cider vinegar. I mean, I guess I guess that raises does that raise the alkalinity or acidity in your body?
I'm not sure, because it's sometimes you can do a lemon,
A lemon, right?
If you take a lemon, which tastes pretty acidic, right?
Yeah.
It will actually lower the acidity in the body.
That's fascinating.
Kind of backwards, isn't it? But I wanted to mention one thing, because we brought up the ibogaine and recovery.
Oh, yes.
Because there's a saying, the ibogaine can get the monkey off your back, but the circus is still in town. So without spiritual direction, without mental control, you slide back down the hole. So you still have to deal with the issues after we get the monkey off your back. And I think you are familiar with one of the products that I hold dear, and that's ginseng.
Wow. Oh, yes. We're familiar with that.
So when we do this kind of therapy to get people off of the heroin or off of the drugs, then we have to go to phase 2, which is regeneration.
Oh, yes.
And that's where the ginseng, especially, maybe I shouldn't mention too many products, but I think you're familiar with David Kahn.
Yes, David. Yes, of course.
Okay.
And it's
David is the
concentrated ginseng. Yeah.
Yes. Well, David is, he just lectured with me in Philadelphia at a national medical meeting. And for what it's worth, he's the researcher and I think patent holder with others on the best ginseng in the world. So after we get people off of the heroin or off the opiates, we try to get this ginseng into them. And
Wow.
and a few other elements. And that ginseng is just as miraculous as the ibogaine.
Yes. Ooh.
It's a gift from God. And the people who have developed it and purified it and come up with this, they need some kudos, because I'm watching it save lives now. And that's not an exaggeration. We can save lives with that ginseng and a few other tricks of the trade.
Praise God. Thank you so much, Dr. Burgess, for your
Very inspirational and educational words today. We'd love to have you back on, just talking about all these things. I love this stuff about health and ginseng and all this. It's so fascinating for me. And since I've always been into healing and into recovery and all this kind of, because I've been training combat martial arts for many years. So I have students and all that stuff. So I've always tried to have some knowledge on this so that I can help other people at least open their ideas to a different realm of possibility. So it's always such a tremendous joy to even learn more about these things. Incredible research that you've done and on ibogaine and things like that. I definitely want to look into that. That sounds incredibly hopeful for many people who are suffering with so many horrific, addictions that are just destroying their lives. I mean, it's so sad that the state of affairs now that you can't even get that kind of treatment in the United States. But hopefully that will change with people like you and your work. But again, thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you back to talk more about this stuff. And hey, maybe next time we could talk about ginseng and ginsenosides and all that good nutrition in there and all that kind of thing. That would be great. Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Burgess. We thank you, appreciate it so much. Thank you all for joining us today on this edition of the King's Report. We'll see you tomorrow with Tim Elder at 5 a.m. sharp. Remember to stay in his presence, stay in his kingdom. Keep your crown and your rod of iron. And we will see you back tomorrow. God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come.